Well, we are getting some breaking news at this point in time, viewers, and this is coming on the back of the movement of Pakistani terrorists which have been captured. Terrorists were spotted by surveillance cameras accessed by Republic TV. And we have got that tape there. You can see it on your screens, the video 1 and video 2. Both the tapes, this is a Republic exclusive at this point of time, where we have captured that tape. Now, what you see on your screen is terrorist spotted on surveillance camera, and explosion post a terrorist had stepped on a landmine. Both the videos are on your screen, the exclusive videos where you can clearly see the movement of Pakistani terrorists captured, and these terrorists were spotted by the surveillance cameras accessed by Republic TV. So this is the terror tape out. I want to bring in Shravan Sen, who has broken this exclusive story. Shravan, take us through what we are seeing right now. Where was this movement of Pakistani terrorists captured?
Well, in fact, Shivangi, we've got exclusive videos. These are basically the Loros surveillance video. I'll just quickly take our viewers through the movement. In fact, let me just go through the first video where you could actually, this is the first video where you can see, I'll just try to close it. It's a little grainy because remember, this is the surveillance, the long range observatory, that is basically carried out. This is the second video. We'll go to the first video first and play out the movement of the terrorists, and then I'll take you through the details of what's the movement like. Let me, before we go back to the first video, let me just put this out, the details that we have. This was an infiltration bid that took place on 22nd of August around 8:55 in the night when the surveillance cameras had basically captured. Now, take a look at this. Let's just enlarge the picture, and you can see this a little closer. You can see two such movements that are basically taking place. What you can see is the two movement that's taking place. That's where the terrorists are basically trying to move, cross over, and this is where they are trying to hide. Let's just repeat that video once again, where you can see clearly the movement of two terrorists. There you see, it's a little grainy, but a closer look at this video, you can see the two terrorists are basically trying to cross over. That's the way, the place that they are hiding. So what really happens thereafter is basically shown in the second video. In the second video, these terrorists are, let's just put that out. And that second video, you could actually see that the terrorists are basically, they've stepped on the landmine and there is an explosion that takes place. So here you take a look at this. The moment they reach here, that's the place that they are hiding. And you'll see there in a short while, that's the explosion. That's the explosion that takes place, captured on this Loros video, the surveillance video, which is essentially, it's a device that is essentially used by the Indian Army across the LC to try and, capture any sort of movement. But here, this attempt that was basically made by the terrorists to cross over, that was detected by the surveillance cameras. And important to point out here, what exactly happened thereafter was that they stepped on the landmine and the explosion has taken place. In fact, we are being told that sometime later today, around 4 o'clock this evening, is when the commander of 80 infantry would be addressing the media. And, in a short while from now, our crews would also be reaching there to cover that press conference. At least the dead bodies of the terrorists have also been recovered, is what I'm being told right now. That's the first major news break on Republic Media Network, confirming that Pakistan-backed terrorists who were trying to infiltrate, they were caught on those surveillance cameras that we have access to, major videos that have been accessed by Republic TV, in which one can clearly see the movement of the terrorists, and moments later, the explosion that takes place. Now we are being told that the bodies have also been recovered, details of which would be shared by the Indian Army in a short while from now, when the press conference is scheduled around 4 o'clock this evening. In fact, my colleague Gursimran is also tracking this story very closely. In fact, Gursimran is en route to rejoin Rajouri, where the briefing is going to take place in a short while from now. Gursimran, if I can also come across to you, the only network once again accessing the details, the videos of the terrorists who were trying to infiltrate. I'm given to understand that the incident was of 22nd of August. Around 8:55 is when the infiltration attempt was made. That's when they stepped on a landmine which basically exploded. All of this now being caught on the Loros surveillance video. What more details are you picking up?
See, Shavan, yes, the incident has been reported at around 9 day before yesterday evening when these terrorists tried to sneak in into the Indian territory, and there was a landmine blast, after which the forces, special forces and the Indian army, they were rushed to the forward areas. Massive searches were launched, and the footages that you have accessed clearly shows that how these Pakistani terrorists, they were trying to sneak in into the Indian territory one after the other, and then the mine explosion that has taken place, that was part of anti-infiltration grid that was put in place by the Indian army. Important to mention that there were multiple attempts by the Pakistani side to push in terrorists into the Indian territory, and this attempt by the Pakistani terrorists came 2 days after a Fidain was arrested by the Indian army along the line of control in the Nowshera sector. This incident was specifically reported in the Pukharni area that falls in the Nowshera sector of the Rajouri, where the attempt of the Pakistan was foiled, and now we are getting to know that both bodies have been recovered, and a huge cache of arms and ammunition too have been recovered from these terrorists, including the sophisticated weapons that will also be displayed by the Indian army, by the commander of the 80 Infantry Brigade, Brigadier Kapil Rana, who will be addressing a press conference in a short while from now, and more details will be diverged. See, the incident has been reported 2 days after a Fidain attacker was arrested by the Indian army on the line of control when he was in a bid to sneak in into the Indian territory, and he too was a trained Fidain suicider who got the training in the Bhimber line of control camp of the Lashkar-e-Toiba for over 6 months, and he has been utilized as an agent by the Pakistani intelligence agency ISI for over 2 years. So whether these two were connected or it was part of a larger plot, because there are credible intelligence input that suggests that the multiple bad actions are being planned by the Pakistani side, because they want to keep the line of control active. They want to show their presence in Jammu and Kashmir. We have seen that in Kashmir Valley recently. Once again, the Pakistani terrorists have tried to show their presence on ground by carrying out the attacks on the civilians or on the minorities or security forces, and even in the Jammu region they are trying to do so on the line of control by carrying out these kind of attempts. But the anti-infiltration grid of the Indian army that stands there, and they have foiled an attempt of the Pakistani terrorist. The videos, two videos important of which you have accessed, and that clearly shows how terrorists trying to sneak in into the Indian territory and how the anti-infiltration grid has foiled the attempt of these Pakistani terrorists. Shavan.
Well, in fact, some more details are now coming in with regards to the recovery of the bodies. I'm given to understand, Gursimran, that the bodies of both the terrorists have been recovered using quadcopters. Now, what you see on this particular screen is these two, what they are calling it, suspected terrorists, individuals who are basically trying to cross over. That was about 150 meters on the side of the LOC when this detection actually took place. It was the Loros which had basically detected the movement of the terrorists, and what thereafter happened was that they stepped on the minefield. This was around 8:55 in the evening on 22nd of August when this entire movement took place, and thereafter let's just put out the video of that explosion, because important to point out here, as Gursimran was also indicating, that this is a clear reflection of the robust grid that is basically in place across the line of control. And what's very important to point out here is the fact that this entire fencing that has basically taken place, or the kind of surveillance that is essentially done by the Indian army, has essentially resulted in a sharp decline in the infiltration bids that have been made. Now, this is clearly a response of how exactly the Indian army is operating to ensure that the infiltration bid that is made by these Pakistani-based, backed terrorists who are basically coming across from multiple launch pads, they are basically stopped right the moment they're trying to cross over. And this is a clear example. Now, the moment they enter, take a look at what happens. There is a explosion that takes place, because that entire area, there are minefields. And the moment you enter, try to go across, this is the result of what happens after the infiltration bid has taken place. Remember, the attempt that the Indian Army has been making is to ensure that they do not enter or reach the hinterland, because that's the basic aim of the Indian Army, and this is a clear response of the robust grid that is in place. It's a clear reflection of the fact that this entire, be it the multiple sectors that has been looked at by the Indian Army, and the fact that you have an overactive launch pads in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the movement in itself is restricted. It's nipped in the bud, and that's a clear reflection of what we are seeing right now. In a short while from now, expected around 4 o'clock this evening, that the Indian Army would be conducting a press conference, because undoubtedly this is a big success. I'm being told that there has also been another big success for the Indian Army. In a short while from now, Gursimran, we'll also be getting that details. Gursimran, any more details with regards to the other operation? Now, in this particular case, the bodies have been recovered by the quadcopters. What about the other operation in which also the Indian Army has seen a major success? I'm given to understand the 25 infantry was basically supposed to carry out a press conference. Any details that you're picking up?
Shavan, a Pakistani terrorist who was in a bid to carry out a Fidain attack has been arrested by the Indian Army, and now the Indian Army will be coming out with more details, because he was the one who got the training from the Pakistani ISI. He was the active agent of the Pakistani ISI for over 2 years. He got the training in the Lashkar-e-Toiba launch pad in the Bhimbar LOC for 6 months, and now he is with the Indian Army. Indian Army will be sharing more details about this conspiracy